Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. Some betrayals don't happen in secret. Some happen with a smile, a laugh, and a glass of wine in hand. It was supposed to be a simple dinner. Just a few close friends, some casual conversation, nothing heavy. We picked a cozy restaurant downtown, warm lights, clinking glasses, the kind of place where no one talked about paychecks or titles. At least, that's what I thought. The night was moving along fine until someone, I don't even remember who, made a harmless joke about work stress. People laughed, shrugged it off. Then came Emily. Bright smile, playful nudge, a voice just loud enough to cut through the laughter. "Well," she said, sipping her wine and glancing at me. "Some of us wouldn't know about stress. Not when you're still living on a grad school stipend." The table froze for a heartbeat. Then came the nervous chuckles, the averted eyes, the tightening in my chest. I didn't say a word, just smiled, the kind of smile that tightens around the edges like a wound you don't want to bleed out in public. She laughed louder when she saw I wasn't laughing, brushed it off with a toss of her hair. "Relax, babe. It's just a joke. Just a joke. Just a moment." Just the public gutting of a man who had been quietly building a future brick by brick. The rest of the night blurred. I heard people trying to change the subject. I felt Emily leaning in closer, trying to reclaim the mood. I even saw her hand brush mine under the table, an apology she didn't have the courage to say out loud. But I didn't take it. I didn't take her hand. I didn't take her excuses. Because there are wounds words can open that apologies can never close. And sitting there, with the buzz of conversation rising again, with the clatter of plates and the low hum of a band starting to play, I realized something brutal. It's not always the betrayal you see coming that breaks you. It's the betrayal you never thought you had to guard against. I finished my drink in silence, laughed when I needed to, played along, but something had shifted inside me. Quietly, permanently. The kind of shift you don't come back from. The kind of shift that starts with a quiet decision. You will never humiliate me again. And that decision, sealed under the dim glow of restaurant lights, was the beginning of the end. She just didn't know it yet. The most dangerous kind of laughter isn't loud. It's the kind that brushes past real hurt like it's a joke. The kind that leaves a bruise without leaving a mark. When we got home that night, Emily tried to smooth it over. She kicked off her heels, poured herself another glass of wine, and flopped onto the couch like nothing had happened. The same woman who mocked me in front of our friends now wanted to act like everything was fine. "You're so sensitive," she said lightly, swirling her glass. It was just a joke. I watched her for a long moment. The easy way she dismissed it. The way she didn't even feel the need to apologize, not really. Because in her mind, my feelings were supposed to be flexible, bendable, disposable. I smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile she was used to. It wasn't the soft, forgiving smile of the man who used to excuse her bad moods and overlook her careless words. No, this smile was colder, sharper, final. And the second she saw it, the second she registered that my smile didn't reach my eyes, she faltered. She laughed again, too loud, too forced. "Come on, Aton. Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. That's what she called standing up for my own dignity. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't give her the fight she was bracing for. I just nodded once, slow and deliberate, and turned away. Because the truth is, you don't lose respect in an explosion. You lose it drip by drip, until one day you realize the cup's been empty for a long, long time. That night, lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling while she scrolled on her phone, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending she hadn't made a choice that couldn't be undone with a kiss or a joke. I didn't reach for her. I didn't turn toward her. I didn't even sigh. I just let the silence grow between us. Heavy, unforgiving. Because when someone shows you what they think you're worth, believe them the first time. No anger, no begging, no more lifting her up while she laughed at the weight I carried. She laughed louder when she thought I wasn't laughing with her. She had no idea. She was laughing herself right into a life without me. Some exits don't need doors. They start with small steps you barely notice, until you realize the distance is already too wide to cross. That night, after her laughter faded into silence, I made my decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't explain. I would simply stop. Stop lifting. Stop fixing. Stop being the silent pillar she leaned against without ever once looking down to see if it was cracking. It started the next morning. She was running late for work, hair half done, fumbling for her keys. She used to call out to me, that playful tone in her voice, half demanding, half flirting. "Eitan, can you grab my bag?" This time, she called out, and I didn't move. I heard the clatter of her keys hitting the floor. I heard the frustration in her voice when she muttered under her breath. But I stayed where I was, sipping my coffee, flipping the page of my book slowly. Small thing. Tiny fracture. But fractures grow. Later, when her car needed gas, I didn't offer. When she mentioned needing help with her taxes, I just nodded, unreadable, and went back to my laptop. When her favorite coffee machine broke, the one I used to fix before she even noticed, I left it sitting there, leaking onto the counter. Because real love isn't in grand gestures. It's in 1,000 invisible supports people don't notice until they're gone. And I was gone. Not physically. Not yet. But in every way that mattered. She started noticing after a few days. The confused looks. The half-hearted smiles. The forced jokes that didn't land anymore. But pride is a funny thing. She didn't ask what was wrong. She didn't apologize. She told herself a different story, that I was being distant, moody, difficult, that she hadn't started the fire we were both now choking on. Good. Let her tell herself whatever she needed to sleep at night. Because I wasn't there to be her safety net anymore. Not emotionally. Not financially. Not in the quiet spaces where true partnership lives or dies. And the best part? I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I just stopped lifting. And every time she stumbled, every time life got a little heavier without me silently carrying the weight, she started to realize something terrifying. When you mock the man who holds you up, you better learn how to stand on your own. And some people, they never learn how. Some storms don't come with thunder. Some just roll in quietly. A slow, steady drowning. I didn't announce anything. I didn't make some grand speech about fairness or hurt feelings. I just started living like I was already alone. First came the finances. Subtle. Surgical. I opened a new bank account. Moved my direct deposit there. Canceled a few automatic payments she never noticed. Her subscriptions, her luxuries, the little conveniences she took for granted. No confrontation. No warning. She still thought everything was the same. Until the first declined payment. A facial appointment. Then a shopping cart full of clothes she didn't need, but always expected to have. Then her favorite little boutique, where the cashier smiled awkwardly as her card was declined, and she had to fumble for another. She came home fuming, waving her phone at me. Confused. Embarrassed. "There's something wrong with the account," she said sharply. I shrugged, setting down my coffee. "You'll have to take care of it." She blinked, as if the words didn't compute. Take care of it? On her own? I watched the realization start to dawn. A slow, creeping fear behind her irritation. Because it wasn't just about the money. It was about the ground shifting beneath her feet. The support she thought she could mock without consequence was gone. And for the first time, she felt the weight of standing alone. Small things piled up. I stopped picking up her dry cleaning on my way home. Stopped making sure her car was washed. Stopped fixing the little things around the house before she even noticed they were broken. The dishwasher stayed broken for weeks. The hallway light flickered and died. The sink started dripping, slow and steady. Each drop a quiet reminder. You mocked the hand that built your comfort. Now you learn what living without it feels like. She tried to pretend it didn't bother her. At first, told herself she was independent. Told her friends she was figuring things out. But the cracks were there, spreading wider every day. Because support isn't just money. It's presence. It's stability. It's a silent gravity you don't appreciate until it's gone. And now, I wasn't her gravity anymore. I was a mirror, reflecting back the life she had chosen. The moment she laughed at the man who was trying to hold her world together. And soon, even pretending wasn't going to be enough. It's funny how fast certainty turns into desperation. When the ground you mocked starts crumbling under your feet. At first, Emily tried to act like nothing had changed. Pride is a stubborn thing. She laughed louder, posted more pictures, wore newer clothes she couldn't really afford. But pride doesn't pay bills. It doesn't fix broken dishwashers. It doesn't fill the silence of a house that feels colder with every passing day. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her energy shifted. The woman who once mocked me for not making enough. The woman who once rolled her eyes at my quiet sacrifices. Started craving the very thing she thought she could live without. Me. It started with little gestures. Lingering touches on my arm. Soft laughs at jokes she used to ignore. She made my favorite dinner one night. Lasagna, homemade from scratch. Something she hadn't done since we were newly married. I ate it in silence, thanked her politely, then went to my study and closed the door behind me. Because here's the brutal truth. When respect dies, love isn't far behind, and no amount of homemade dinners can resurrect the dead. After that, she tried harder. She complimented my new shirts, left notes on the bathroom mirror, sent flirty texts in the middle of the day like we were 22 again. She smiled wider, laughed softer, stood a little closer than necessary when we passed in the hallway. But none of it reached me. Not really. Because attention given out of panic isn't love. It's survival. She wasn't missing me. She was missing the man who carried her burdens without complaint. The man who made life easy enough for her to laugh without worrying who was holding up the walls. But that man was gone. And the new man she was trying to charm, the man who sat across the dinner table silent and unreachable, was someone she didn't know how to touch anymore. Not with flirtation, not with food, not with tears. She thought affection was a switch she could flick whenever she needed reassurance. She didn't realize that switches, once snapped, don't always turn back on. She didn't realize she was chasing shadows now, and I was perfectly fine letting her run in circles around the ruins she never thought she'd have to live in. When someone realizes they've lost you, they don't start with apologies. They start with performances. It got worse after that. The little gestures turned desperate. Clumsy attempts to build bridges over a canyon she didn't even realize she had dug herself. She started leaving small gifts around the house. A new watch on the dresser. A pair of sneakers I had once casually mentioned liking. Gift cards tucked into my jacket pockets. Cheap currency for something that was already priceless. One evening, she came down the stairs in a black dress I hadn't seen in years. The one she used to wear when she wanted all of my attention. The one that, years ago, would have pulled me across any room without a second thought. No? I barely looked up from my book. She hovered in the doorway, shifting her weight from foot to foot. Waiting. Needing. I turned the page. No words. No compliments. No reaction. Because attention offered as bait isn't a gift. It's a bride. And real connection? It doesn't have a price tag. She still didn't get it. Still thought this was about needing more effort, more seduction, more something. But this wasn't about needing anything. It was about realizing I was done giving everything to someone who treated it like background noise. She came to me one night, slipping into bed after her shower, smelling like the perfume she knew I loved, trailing her fingers lightly across my chest. I closed my eyes, breathed in, and rolled away. A small, simple movement, but enough. Enough to shatter the illusion that anything she could do now would matter. Enough to make her hand fall limply to the mattress, fingers grasping at nothing. She lay awake that night. I could feel it. The tension in the air. The weight of all the things she wanted to say but knew would come too late. Because there are moments in life when you don't get second chances. When the window closes so quietly you don't even hear it slam shut. She thought affection could fix what contempt had broken. She thought gifts could patch what disrespect had torn open. But some debts can't be repaid with flowers, or kisses, or desperate hands. Some debts are settled in silence. And I was collecting every day. People only ask questions when they already know the answers and are desperate to change them. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. No warning. No build-up. One moment, I was sitting at the kitchen table, casually scrolling through news on my phone. The next, she was standing there, hands on hips, eyes bright with anger and fear and something else she couldn't quite name yet. Panic. Why aren't you trying anymore? She snapped. Her voice cracked halfway through, but she masked it with a sharp glare. I looked up at her slowly. Measured her the way you measure the distance to a fire you have no intention of putting out. There was a time I would have jumped to fix things. Would have apologized, even when I hadn't done anything wrong. Would have closed the space between us like it was my job to patch every crack she made. But that man? He didn't live here anymore. I set my phone down carefully, folded my hands, and for the first time in months, I spoke the simple truth. I stopped fighting for someone who made a joke out of me. She flinched. Not visibly, not dramatically, but I saw it. The tiny recoil behind her eyes. The sudden realization that the ground she stood on wasn't cracked. It was gone. She opened her mouth to argue, to deny, to twist the story back in her favor. But I didn't give her the chance. I stood up, calm, slow, final, and I said the words she never thought she'd hear from the man she believed would always be there. You're not my home anymore. She stared at me, wide-eyed, speechless for the first time in what felt like years. Because when someone believes your loyalty is unconditional, they stop earning it. They start thinking it's guaranteed. They think they can humiliate you, dismiss you, disrespect you, and still find you waiting with open arms. But respect isn't unconditional. Support isn't unconditional. Love isn't unconditional. Not when you stomp all over it with laughter and expect it to grow back stronger. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't list all the ways she had gutted the man who once would have walked through fire for her. I just left her standing there, with all her questions, all her accusations, all her regrets. Because when a man stops lifting you up, you finally feel just how heavy you really are. And no tantrum, no demand, no carefully rehearsed apology can lighten that weight. Not anymore. Some endings don't come with slam doors. They come with soft footsteps and the sound of drawers opening and closing in the dark. I didn't announce I was leaving, didn't throw accusations across the room, didn't pack bags in anger. I moved carefully, quietly, one drawer at a time, one closet at a time, one life at a time. She knew it was happening. I could see it in the way she lingered at doorways, the way her words stumbled whenever she tried to sound casual, the way her eyes flicked to the packed suitcase I left leaning against the bedroom wall. But she didn't stop me. Maybe pride, maybe fear, maybe the cold realization that no apology would matter anymore. One evening, as the sun sank behind the trees, painting the living room in a tired orange glow, I zipped up the last bag, slung it over my shoulder, took one final look around the house we once dreamed in. She stood in the kitchen doorway, silent, frozen, waiting for me to say something, anything, waiting for the fight that might bring back the man she used to know. But fights are for people who still care enough to bleed, and I didn't bleed for her anymore. I just nodded once. A small, polite gesture. A goodbye stripped of drama, of rage, of hope. And then I walked out. No tears, no shouting, no promises. Just the sound of the door closing behind me. Soft, final. Because here's the thing. When someone stops lifting you up, you finally feel just how heavy your life really is. And as I stepped into the crisp evening air, felt the weight of her house, her expectations, her mockery fall away from my shoulders, I realized something simple and brutal. Sometimes the real freedom isn't in escaping chains. It's in walking away from someone who thought you were theirs to hold down. No revenge, no scorched earth, just peace, the kind you find when you finally stop carrying people who never once tried to carry you. Freedom sounds loud when you have an audience. It's deafening when you're alone. At first, Emily played it well. Or at least she tried. She posted pictures, smiling at brunches, laughing at parties, pretending life had never been better. Selfies with fake friends. Motivational quotes about strength and new beginnings. It was a performance. One designed for likes, for comments, for validation. But behind every carefully angled shot, behind every glass of wine raised in fake celebration, the cracks were growing. Because freedom, real freedom, isn't about being seen. It's about not needing to be seen. And Emily didn't know how to exist without an audience. Slowly, reality set in. The invitation slowed. The text stopped buzzing at all hours. The brunches grew emptier. Friends, real ones, not the online echoes, started drifting away. Not out of malice, just out of gravity. Because people can feel it. The desperate weight of someone pretending too hard. The bitterness that creeps into every conversation. The heavy silence that falls after every forced laugh. And no one wants to sit under a collapsing roof. I heard bits and pieces from mutual friends. The missed payments. The quiet selling off of things she used to flaunt. The whispered rumors about how different she seemed now. Tired, they said. Not herself. But I didn't reach out. I didn't ask. I didn't look back. Because helping her stand was a chapter that had ended the moment she mocked the hands that held her up. Now, she was learning the final, most brutal truth. When you destroy the foundation someone else built for you, you don't just lose them. You lose the world they made possible. The cozy apartment, the effortless weekends, the easy security of knowing someone had your back, even when you didn't deserve it. Gone. Not stolen. Not ripped away in anger. Just gone. Like a tide slipping back into the ocean, leaving nothing but broken shells and the faint, fading memory of warmth. She thought walking alone would feel like freedom. She didn't realize it would feel like falling. Some lessons don't come with warnings. Some only come after everything you thought was permanent crumbles beneath you. I never blocked her. Never sent cruel messages. Never gloated. I didn't need to. Silence was enough. Silence said everything words couldn't. It said, "You mocked the hands that built your comfort. You laughed at the man who stood quietly behind you when no one else would. And now, you stand alone." I moved on. Quietly. Deliberately. Built a life rooted in respect, in partnership, in mutual weight-bearing. Not perfect. Nothing ever is. But real. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. Stopped hoping for acknowledgments that were never honest. Because here's the truth people don't want to hear. Respect is not something you mock. Support is not something you demand. And love, real love, is not something you survive by laughing at. It's something you nurture, protect, honor. She didn't lose me because of one joke. She lost me because of the 1,000 moments she taught me my efforts were invisible. Until I made myself invisible for real. Somewhere out there, she's probably still telling herself stories. Blaming the distance. Blaming the silence. Blaming anything but the mirror. That's fine. I don't need her to understand. Understanding was never my burden to carry. I gave her everything I had. And when she laughed in its face, I learned the most important lesson a man can ever learn. You don't have to fight to be seen. You only have to walk away from people who refuse to look. And once you do, you realize something beautiful. Silence isn't emptiness. It's freedom. And I was finally free. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.